right, everyone, get ready. We're going deep into React Native styling today.
Ooh, styling.
We got to talk about it.
It's a big one.
Yeah, all the libraries, all the tools that developers are using to, build these awesome user interfaces we see on our apps all the time.
Right.
We've got articles, we've got GitHub stats.
We've got some spicy social media posts.
Ooh.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack all that stuff.
I'm excited.
I think this will be a good one.
So unlike regular web development, React Native, it doesn't have that direct CSS support, right?
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a learning curve for developers coming from that web background.
Yeah.
They're used to CSS, it's very familiar. And then they get to React Native and they're like, wait a minute, I have to use JavaScript objects for everything.
It can be clunky at times, for sure.
Yeah, it can be a little clunky.
So these styling libraries, they're trying to kind of bridge that gap, right?
Yeah, they're trying to make it more intuitive.
More efficient.
More enjoyable.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's talk about, NativeWind seems to be like, it's everywhere, right?
NativeWind is definitely having a moment right now.
What's the big deal? What's going on with it?
So it takes that utility-first approach that
Yeah.
we know and love from Tailwind CSS.
Familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And brings it to the React Native world.
So utility first, just for people who might not know, what does that even mean?
So instead of writing like traditional CSS rules,
Okay.
you're applying these predefined classes
Right.
directly in your markup. Things like, padding 4 or text red 500.
Yeah.
So you're not really writing custom CSS. You're just kind of composing styles by using these pre-existing building blocks.
Like Legos, but for styling.
Exactly, like Legos.
I like it. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's all about speed and conciseness.
So it's popular, right? GitHub says over 5,100 stars.
Yeah. And in our Twitter survey, tons of developers were praising it for how easy it is to use.
That's awesome.
However,
Well, there's always a however.
there were a few comments, and this is something to keep in mind with any cross-platform framework. But some people brought up potential inconsistencies between how styles render on Android versus iOS.
Oh, that's a challenge, right?
Huge challenge. Cross-platform consistency is, one of the big ongoing struggles in React Native development.
Yeah, for sure. So NativeWind, speedy, familiar,
Yeah.
but some potential cross-platform issues.
Gotta watch out for those gotchas.
Okay, now what about the built-in StyleSheet API? It comes with React Native.
You know what? Don't underestimate the power of the basics.
That's right.
StyleSheet, it's built in, no external dependencies. It's super performant.
I was going to say that's a big deal
Right.
because you don't have to add extra stuff to your project.
And remember, in React Native, you are styling with JavaScript objects, and StyleSheet is a really good way to create and manage those objects efficiently.
Yeah, and I saw a comment actually in the survey where someone was like, why even bother with these external libraries if StyleSheet just works?
It's a good point.
Right. Especially maybe if you're working on a smaller project.
Right. For smaller projects, maybe if you really value that simplicity and you just want to get up and running quickly, StyleSheet might be all you need.
Okay.
But
as projects get more complex.
as they inevitably do, then, maybe you start needing some of these external libraries that offer some additional features and conveniences that StyleSheet just doesn't have.
And that leads us perfectly to Tamagui.
Tamagui. Now, there's a library that
It's more than just styling, right?
it's a lot more than styling. It's almost like a whole mini ecosystem for building React Native apps.
Wow.
It handles styling, of course, but it also has tools for creating animations, managing themes, building these reusable components, and even optimizing your code for performance.
Yeah, it seems very ambitious.
It's very ambitious.
I got a lot of GitHub stars, too.
Over 11,400 stars on GitHub. That's
Not bad.
not bad at all. And it's getting some pretty strong reactions from developers, too.
That's awesome.
Like one developer in our survey called it hot.
Okay.
They were really excited about it, and they praised its ability to seamlessly integrate styling, animation, and even web components.
That's a big deal. Seamless integration.
Seamless integration is huge because, a lot of times you have these different libraries and they don't always play nicely together, right?
Yeah.
But Tamagui's really trying to create this smooth, integrated experience where everything just works together.
Sounds nice.
So they're really tackling that challenge of creating consistent, high-performing UIs across different platforms.
That's great. And let's not forget Unistyles.
Unistyles.
Maybe a smaller following.
Yeah, it doesn't have as many GitHub stars, but the people who use it, they really love it.
They're passionate about it.
They are very passionate about Unistyles.
So what is it about? What's it all about?
So They're very focused on cross-platform consistency and developer experience. So they're really trying to make styling in React Native more predictable, more reliable, and more consistent across iOS and Android.
And the developer experience is a big deal too, right? Because
Sure.
if you're using these tools all day, every day.
You want them to be a joy to use.
Exactly.
And that's what Unistyles is trying to achieve.
So consistency is like a huge selling point then.
Yeah, especially with all those cross-platform headaches we were talking about earlier.
Now we've got to talk about the kind of the wild card.
The wild card, yes.
Shadowing.
Chatacrin. So we came across this really interesting social media post.
Ooh, juicy.
It was hinting at Shadcaren potentially bringing their component library to React Native
Right, really?
with Expo support.
Now, for people who aren't familiar, what is Shadchan?
So in the React world, Shadchan is known for these beautifully designed, customizable components, all styled with Tailwind CSS.
So we could potentially have these really nice pre-built components in our React Native apps.
Potentially, yeah, we don't have all the details yet.
That would be a game changer.
It could be huge, yeah, and it just goes to show, like, how quickly things are changing in this React Native styling landscape.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got NativeWind
Mm-hmm.
riding that utility first wave.
Yeah.
We've got StyleSheet, which is kind of holding its own.
The OG.
Their OG. Yeah, Tamagui, kind of like the all-in-one approach.
Mm-hmm.
Unistyles focused on consistency.
Yeah.
And then this wild card, Shadquin, potentially coming in.
It's exciting times.
So that's a lot, right?
It's a lot to digest.
A lot of different options.
There's no one-size-fits-all solution.
And choosing a styling library, I mean,
Yeah.
it's more than just popularity.
Right.
It's more than, what's trendy or what has the most GitHub stars.
Yeah, you've got to think about your specific project.
Right.
Think about the strengths and weaknesses of each approach.
So, what's going to make your life easier as a developer?
And what's going to create a more delightful experience for your users.
All right. So we've met the players. We've kind of talked about, what they're all about. But in part 2,
Yeah.
we're going to really dive deeper into why this choice even matters.
The why.
The why.
This is an important question.
So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've met all the contenders in this React Native styling showdown.
We've got our lineup.
NativeWind, StyleSheet, Tamagui, Unistyles, and even Shadcason may be making an appearance.
A wild card.
But let's talk about why this even matters.
Yeah, why should developers care about all of this?
Right, like at the end of the day, it's all about building great apps, right?
And it is. And in the world of mobile apps, styling, it's not just about aesthetics.
It's not just about making things look pretty.
It's really about the whole user experience.
Yeah, making it feel smooth,
Intuitive.
professional. And users, I mean, they can tell the difference, right?
They can absolutely tell.
You think about the apps you use every day, like the ones that just feel so polished and they just work.
Yeah.
Chances are they put a lot of thought into how they're styled.
A lot of care went into that.
So the styling library you choose, it can actually have a big impact on that.
Yeah, huge impact.
It's kind of crazy to think about.
Both in terms of how you build the app and how users experience it.
It can affect, everything, right?
Everything, from development speed to performance to the long-term maintainability of your code base.
Let's break that down a little bit. Like, how does choosing a styling library actually affect, like, the day-to-day work of a developer?
Okay, so first off, think about how fast you can build the app.
Yeah, speed is important.
Especially in app development where things move so quickly.
Remember NativeWind with that utility-first approach?
Yeah.
Imagine just styling components with a few classes. It's like,
building with Legos.
right, like, that sounds way better than trying to figure out, like, all these nested style objects.
Yeah, it can get really complicated.
Time is money.
Absolutely.
And then there are libraries like Tamagui that not only handle styling, but they've got those pre-built components, the animations. They even have an optimizing compiler.
Right, it's like having a whole toolkit.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's about, obviously writing less code, but also just writing better code from the beginning.
More optimized code, right?
Yeah.
And that leads us to the performance aspect.
Oh, yeah, performance. Always a big deal.
Huge. Remember that comment about StyleSheet being like the most performant because it's built in?
Yeah, I remember that. So if you're all about performance, is that the way to go? Just stick with the basics.
It could be, especially for simpler apps, where you don't need all the fancy features.
Yeah, it's like you don't need all the bells and whistles.
But you have to balance that against, what the other libraries can offer.
Yeah, like the trade-offs.
Exactly. Like NativeWind might be faster to develop with.
Yeah, it's true.
And Tamagui might have features that would take you forever to build from scratch.
Okay, so it's a balancing act.
Always a balancing act. Performance, speed, the needs of your project.
Let's talk about maintainability.
Maintainability.
Because you build an app, you launch it,
But then what?
then the real work begins, right?
Exactly. You're going to be updating it, fixing bugs, adding features, and maybe you'll even hand it off to other developers.
So choosing the right styling library, is that like future-proofing your code in a way?
It absolutely is. You want your code to be easy to understand
Easy to chant.
and easy to scale. And that's where a well-structured styling library can really help.
Like Tamagui, with the themes and the reusable components.
Yeah, it's like building a design system, creating a visual language for your whole app.
So you're not just styling random elements here and there.
You're creating a cohesive system.
Yeah, consistent.
Consistent throughout the entire app.
Think about apps like, Instagram or Spotify.
Mm.
They have such a distinct style, and it's consistent across all the features.
And that's what makes the app feel polished, professional.
Yeah, trustworthy.
Users know what to expect. They know how to use the app.
That makes a big difference.
Huge difference. And it all starts with the styling library.
All right, so we've talked performance, maintainability, consistency, but we can't forget about cross-platform compatibility.
Yes, the elephant in the room.
The challenge that never goes away.
Never goes away, and your styling library can either help you with this or make things much, much worse.
Remember those comments about NativeWind and the potential inconsistencies?
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous about that.
It's a good reminder that no library is perfect.
Right.
You got to do your testing.
On both platforms.
Absolutely.
Are there any libraries that are especially good at handling this cross-platform challenge?
Well, Unistyles and Tamagui, they're specifically designed with cross-platform consistency in mind.
Oh, yeah.
They give you tools and abstractions to help create those consistent UIs across iOS and Android.
So they're like the heroes of the cross-platform world.
The peacekeepers, maybe.
They keep things running smoothly.
Trying to.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Performance, maintainability, consistency, cross-platform compatibility.
That's a lot.
What's the big takeaway for developers, for people who are trying to figure out, like, what should I use?
I think the biggest takeaway is there is no silver bullet.
There's never a silver bullet.
Choosing a styling library is a strategic decision.
Right.
You have to understand your project, what are your needs, and understand the strengths and weaknesses of each library.
And then make a choice.
That aligns with your goals.
And it's always changing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got shadfriends potentially coming in. There's always new stuff coming out.
Always new stuff to learn.
So stay informed.
Stay curious.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the practical side of all of this,
Yeah.
but all of this begs a bigger question, right?
Ooh, getting philosophical.
A little bit. What does this evolution of styling libraries tell us about the trends that are shaping software development in general?
I like it.
We're going to tackle that in part 3.
All right, stay tuned. Okay, so we've talked about all the practical stuff.
All the nuts and bolts.
Yeah, but now let's zoom out a little.
Big picture topic.
Yeah, what does all of this, all these libraries and all these choices, what does it tell us about, where software development is going?
It's a really interesting question, isn't it?
I think so.
Because, React Native itself,
Yeah.
it's all about bridging worlds.
Right, like using, your web development skills.
JavaScript, mainly,
Yeah.
to build native mobile apps.
That whole write once, run anywhere idea.
Exactly, the dream.
The dream. And these styling libraries, they're kind of doing the same thing, aren't they?
They are. They're all trying to find that balance
Okay.
between, the flexibility and familiarity of web styling.
Like using CSS?
Exactly. And then the performance and that native look and feel that mobile users expect.
Right, because you can't just make a website and put it on a phone.
No, it doesn't quite work that way.
It's got to feel like a native app.
Yeah, it has to feel right.
So it's almost like they're trying to, translate from the language of the web to the language of mobile.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
And you see that everywhere, don't you, in software? Like we're always trying to find ways to make things more efficient,
More portable.
more user-friendly, make it work on all these different platforms.
It's the name of the game.
So this struggle in React Native styling, trying to get that web-like flexibility, but also that native performance.
Yeah,
It's kind of a reflection of a bigger trend in software.
absolutely. And it's why this whole area is so exciting.
Yeah.
Because these libraries, they're always evolving, they're experimenting, they're trying to, crack the code.
And it's not just about the technology itself, right?
It's about the people using it.
The developers.
The developers, yeah, because developers want tools that are intuitive.
Easy to use.
Enjoyable to use, because they want to spend less time, fighting with the code.
Yeah, fighting with the code. We've all been there.
And more time building great experiences for users.
Right. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right?
It is, and that's why this whole conversation about styling libraries, it's important.
Yeah, it's not just about, picking colors and fonts.
It's about finding the right tools for the job.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into React Native styling, I think what we've learned is, it's not just about picking a library and calling it a day.
It's about understanding the bigger picture.
Yeah, the challenges.
The possibilities.
And knowing that things are always changing.
Yeah, there's always something new coming along.
So if you were starting a new React Native project today,
Yeah.
what would you do? What approach would you take to styling?
Ooh, that's a good question.
What would you choose?
What library would you choose and why? What factors would you consider?
Yeah, we want to hear from you. Let us know
Join the conversation.
over on our social media.
Tell us about your experiences.
Yeah, share your insights.
We love hearing from you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into React Native styling.
It's been fun.
Until next time, happy coding.